Hey guys, this is Ms. Arlequin, and in this video, we are going to be beginning our lessons on film techniques. So we're going to be identifying and analyzing techniques used by filmmakers to develop their storylines. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on this lesson on camera shots. So our learning target is I can analyze how different types of camera shots affect a film. So by the end of this lesson, we should be able to achieve our two criteria for success. Number one, you want to be able to identify the different types of shots. And number two, you want to know the effect a shot has on the audience. All right, so have you ever gotten lost in a book, picturing the characters in the scene so clearly you almost felt as if you were there? A writer has very few tools with which to create that world. They can use dialogue and thought, sensory description, and action. But movie directors have a much wider array of techniques that they can use to bring their stories to life. As a viewer and as a critical thinker, we want to be aware of what those techniques are so that can actually help us appreciate the way that the director crafts a story, the same way we try to appreciate the author's techniques in the text that we're reading. And that gives us a deeper appreciation and understanding of the story and the writing process. We want to look at the way directors can craft that story, the way it affects us as a viewer, and how there could be different levels of a movie. So a movie is basically just another text that we're trying to analyze. Now, a camera shot basically describes how close what you're filming is to the camera. You can even just kind of try to practice this at home. If you make your fingers form just a little box and you move that box, your hands farther away from you and then closer to you, you can see how the object that you're looking through can be smaller or bigger depending on how far your camera, aka your fingers, are to that object. So the first type of camera shot is an extreme close-up. It looks exactly like what we're seeing on the screen. It's used to film very small details closely. And an example would be like Harry Potter right there with the glasses, or an extreme close-up of somebody's mouth when they scream. Extreme close-ups can be of objects, people, body parts, could be really of anything. Now, why would a director want to use an extreme close-up? It basically forces the audience to focus on very specific details, and it can create a very intense mood, and it can provide interaction between the audience and the viewer. Now, when you're looking at extreme close-ups, as you can see in these video clips right here, as I mentioned on the previous slide, they can be of body parts, but they can also be of objects. And you can see as we're looking at these extreme close-ups, it's kind of uncomfortable, right? You're not used to being that close to a person or to an object in real life. So it's really kind of forcing you in this uncomfortable position. And like I said, it creates a very intense mood. All right, next we have close-ups. Close-ups are used to film just the head or the face. So when you look at someone's expression on their face, you want to show the audience their reaction, you're probably going to choose a close-up. Now, the effect that it has on us as the viewer is it can really help us understand how a character is feeling. And it also allows us as the audience to feel empathy for the character. We're so close to them, we can see the nuances, the real subtle differences in their eyes, their expression. So it's really good for getting your audience to make a connection to the characters. All right, next we have a medium close-up. Medium close-up is when you're filming the face and the upper part of the body. So usually the shoulders are included, but you wouldn't go anywhere below that. Someone who's reading the news on the TV is usually shot in a medium close-up. And it affects us as the viewer because it allows us to see the characters' faces more clearly, but it's a little bit more of a comfortable distance. And it's a little bit more natural, like when you're standing next to somebody in real life and you're having a conversation with them. There's space usually in between you. People don't get like super close. It's a social shot. Because the camera's pulled back a little bit, you might even be able to see things behind the character, where a close-up might cut some of that background visual out of the picture. All right, next we have a medium shot. This is where you can see most of a person's body. It's usually from the waist up. And that allows the viewer to look at the costumes of the characters. It can show relationships between characters because you can see where they're standing in relationship to each other. Usually in the previous shots, you can only see the one person that the medium close-up or the close-up is focusing on. Like you wouldn't be able to see who these characters are talking to. You'd have to cut back and forth to show that. A medium shot, you could have two people within the frame pretty easily, and you can definitely see a lot of background information in a medium shot. All right, next we have the long shot. So a long shot is when you can see the whole person moving around. So for example, if you're filming someone walking somewhere or a group of people standing around having a conversation, you would probably use a long shot for that. Now the effect is that it gives a sense of a place. You really get an idea of the setting and where the characters are in relationship to each other. And a long shot can show the viewers the building where the action's taking place. It could like establish the setting, and it could show movement pretty easily. Camera can even then follow people around with long shots. All right, and finally we have an extreme long shot. An extreme long shot is when a person begins to seem quite far away. For example, you would use this when you're really not focusing on characters, but you're focusing on the setting. You're trying to establish action scenes or where the story is taking place. Filming a crowd of people would be an extreme long shot. You can see here where you really can almost hardly see this character there. It's really mostly about the setting, and the people become like little ants almost. So the effect is that it can contain a large amount of landscape. So it's often used at the beginning of a scene or film to establish the location. A lot of times that shot is called an establishing shot, where you're establishing the location. And what you're establishing shots are usually going to be extreme long shots.